Chosen one, something is happening right now in a space you may never set foot in. Your name has become the centerpiece of a conversation that isn't going the way your detractors expected. The false version of you they preached like gospel is crumbling because it doesn't match the thriving person you actually are. That gap is causing a massive internal crisis for them. So many questions are being asked about you. A whole community is shook. Every significant journey begins with a disturbance. The disturbance is not always loud. Sometimes the most consequential ones arrive quietly, as a drag you cannot locate, a heaviness with no obvious source, a sense that something in the atmosphere has shifted against you without your knowledge or consent. That is how this started for you. It did not start with a confrontation you could stand before and address. It did not start with an accusation you could answer directly. It started as noise you were not even present to hear, your name circulating in a space you never occupied, chatter with no clear origin point spinning in circles. And somehow, across the distance between that space and your actual life, you felt it. That is the thing about people like you. You sense the shape of something before the thing announces itself. You felt the drag. You felt the subtle resistance. You noticed the way your energy would get heavy for no visible reason, the way something that should have moved forward would inexplicably stall. You told yourself it was probably just life being difficult, that everyone passes through seasons like this, that you were reading too much into it. You were not reading too much into it. Something was in motion, and it had your name on it. Someone had appointed themselves the narrator of your life. This was not a genuine witness. This was not someone who knew you with any real depth or accuracy. This was someone who had looked at you, recognized something they could not produce in themselves, and made a cold, calculated decision. If they could not have what you carry, they would make sure no one else could see it either. So the talking began, and it was not casual conversation. It carried the weight of conviction, the language of spiritual authority, the specific and carefully calibrated vocabulary of a person who wants an audience to be afraid of you. They called you false. They called your gifts manufactured. They said you were pretending to be something sacred when you were actually something dangerous. And they delivered all of this in front of people who trusted them, people who had long since handed over their own discernment in exchange for the comfort of belonging. People listened, because that is what people do when someone they love speaks with certainty. They are not casual questions. You do not invest urgent, repeated energy questioning someone you have already dismissed and moved past. When you have truly dismissed someone, you stop thinking about them. The questions being asked about you right now arise when two competing realities cannot be reconciled, when what was promised about you simply does not match what is observable. Every person in that community who woke up today still carrying a question about you is a person whose certainty has developed a fracture. Fractured certainty does not quietly repair itself. It either breaks all the way open into honesty, or it gets forcefully maintained at great personal cost. Either way, the fracture is working for you, without a single effort on your part. What was being built around your name was not simple gossip. Gossip is lazy and temporary. It flares and dies. What was constructed around your name had infrastructure. It had ongoing maintenance. It had an audience that was being carefully managed and consistently fed. The account of who you were got refreshed repeatedly. New details layered in, old details polished. The emotional temperature of the group held at precisely the level needed to sustain compliance without triggering the kind of discomfort that causes people to examine who is actually frightening them. Think about the sustained effort that requires. Most people, when they have a genuine disagreement with someone, express it and move forward. Only one kind of person maintains deliberate, sustained opposition against someone across time and at real personal cost, the kind of person for whom that opposition is providing something essential. It provides power, it provides validation, it provides the sense of purpose that comes from having a defined enemy and an audience that depends on you because you are the one naming the danger. What was being harvested from this entire situation was your energy. This is not a metaphor. A group of people directing their spiritual attention and emotional focus toward a single target generates a real and potent resource. Fear is extraordinarily efficient fuel, and the person positioned between that group and the thing they were told to fear holds an intoxicating position, one that becomes worth protecting at almost any cost. The fixed point you need to hold clearly is this: the entire operation depended on you breaking. The moment the central claim visibly failed, everything it was propping up would come down with it. The structure was always dependent on you becoming what they described, and becoming what they described was the one thing you refused to do. The people in that circle were not passive recipients of the message about you. They were active amplifiers, even without knowing it. Every agreement, every added voice, every moment of focus directed at you amplified the signal. The person orchestrating this operation was conducting, and the group was the instrument. The combined output was aimed at you from multiple directions simultaneously. That is why it felt sourceless. That is why it felt pervasive. The people in that group were not malicious, they were used. That distinction matters enormously. Understanding it is what allows you to move through this without carrying bitterness that does not actually belong to you. The bitterness belongs at the source, and the source knew precisely what was being done. If this message activated your knowing, hype this video to connect with more chosen ones on this journey. What was targeted was not your reputation first. Reputation is surface level. What was attacked was something much deeper, the specific channels through which your gifts actually operate, your creative power and your intuition, between the place where you generate and build and the place where you sense and discern. These are not separate systems, they feed from the same source and exist in intimate relationship with each other. When one is deliberately disrupted, flooded with enough manufactured chaos that it stalls, the other becomes unreliable. When your creative flow is blocked, your intuitive signal gets noisy. When your intuition gets noisy, your discernment weakens. When your discernment weakens, you become vulnerable to exactly the kind of misdirection the entire operation was designed to produce. That is not random targeting. That is the kind of precision that comes from deep knowledge of, or deep fear of what those specific gifts can do when they are fully operational. And here is what they can do when fully operational. They can see through performance, they can read what is real beneath what is presented. They can identify the gap between what someone claims to be and what they actually are. When you are fully operational, you function as a living truth detector, and nothing frightens a person built entirely on performance and concealment more than a truth detector they cannot disable. The strategy was to introduce enough fragmentation, enough pieces of your sense of self left scattered in manufactured confusion, so that the whole system would run at diminished capacity. Then came the cruelest part of the trap: use that diminished capacity as public evidence that you were never real to begin with. Attack the gifts, then point to the impact of the attack as proof the gifts were always counterfeit. Any defense you mount gets absorbed into the accusation. Any response confirms the narrative. The trap was designed so that engagement itself was losing, and silence was supposed to be losing too. There was also a specific accusation layered on top of everything, that you were a false healer. That phrase was engineered to reach the deepest layer of your identity. It was not merely a challenge to your capabilities. It was a direct assault on your sense of purpose. It communicated the thing you believe you were sent here to do is fabricated. The people who said you helped them were deceived, and everything you believe you are is performance with nothing real underneath it. That accusation was aimed precisely at the place in you that already held quiet doubt. Because everyone who carries genuine gifts also carries the question beneath them: am I actually this? What if I have been wrong about myself? That question is not weakness. It is the mark of someone who takes their purpose seriously enough to keep examining whether they are living it with integrity. But in the wrong hands, that integrity becomes a lever. Pull it hard enough and you can use someone's conscience against them, turning the very quality that makes them good into the thing that paralyzes them. That lever was pulled, and for a season you felt its pull. But here is what was not accounted for. A false healer, when their gifts face sustained scrutiny, eventually stops operating. There is nothing beneath the performance capable of sustaining function under real pressure, so they retreat and go quiet. What you did was the opposite. You kept going, you kept showing up, you kept producing outcomes that were inconsistent with someone whose gifts were fabricated. The accumulation of that consistency became an inconvenient, immovable presence at the center of their operation that nobody could explain away. The plan was to wait for you to fall. The plan was to set the conditions, coordinate the pressure, sustain the account of who you were, and then wait for the confirmation. The community was held in readiness, prepared to receive word that every warning had been proven correct. The confirmation never came. You did not fall, not because nothing reached you. It reached you. There were stretches where you felt the full weight of everything directed at you. There were stretches where the doubt settled in and the heaviness felt permanent, and the light inside you felt genuinely dangerously low. You were not floating above this in spiritual immunity. You were in it fully, feeling every current, processing every impact, and you kept moving anyway. I must interrupt this transmission for just a moment. Are you really chosen? Prove it. It's easy to watch videos about chosen ones. It's another thing to put yourself to the test. If you're still here, that means something. But talk is cheap. Real chosen ones take action, and real chosen ones are also paying attention. You've noticed it. Chosen one channels getting silenced, videos pulled, voices removed from the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice, and neither should you. That's why joining Destiny Engine is a 360 win. You support your favorite channels and fuel your own rise at the same time. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve divine justice. The beauty is you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and watch your enemies choke on the rope their own lies created. If you're done consuming and ready to prove you're chosen, start your Destiny Engine for $1 today. Join the Obsidian Inner Order live checks and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. You kept moving, not perfectly and not with grace on every difficult day, but consistently. You returned to yourself again and again, back to your center, back to your knowing, back to the part of you that could not be argued out of its awareness of what you carry. And every return brought you back slightly more anchored than before, slightly more precise, slightly more rooted in something the opposition simply could not access. Your gifts did not dim permanently, they clarified. Your intuition did not cloud over and stay clouded, it came back sharper. Your creative channel did not stay blocked, it reopened, and what came through after the pressure was stronger for having been pressurized. You became more powerful in the exact places that had been targeted. That is the specific, undeniable detail that is now dismantling everything built against you from the inside out. Specific promises were made to that group about what was going to happen to you. Specific outcomes were described. The community was held in a state of anticipation, prepared to receive the confirmation that would validate everything they had been told. A leader who makes specific promises about outcomes and cannot deliver does not only lose credibility on that one thing, the failure reopens the entire record. Every previous declaration gets quietly reviewed. Every past certainty gets silently re-examined. The whole account gets called back into question. That is the shift happening right now. The questioning is no longer only about whether the account of you was accurate. It has moved to whether the person who delivered that account can be trusted at all. That is an entirely different and far more destabilizing kind of crisis. Once that question enters a community, it does not stop at the edges of the original subject. It moves inward and backward through every belief assembled under the same authority. A voice that has lost the genuine trust of those listening to it is not a voice of authority anymore. It is just sound. The most dangerous thing that was always going to happen to the person running this operation was not any external opposition. It was time. Simple, patient, undefeatable time. A constructed identity cannot sustain itself indefinitely. The longer the performance runs, the more points of consistency it requires, and the more points of consistency it requires, the more opportunities arise for the gap to show. The gap between what is said publicly and what is practiced privately. The gap between the righteousness preached in front of others and the methods used when no one from the community is watching. The gap between the spiritual authority claimed and the very specific, deeply personal fear that exists of one individual simply living their authentic life. That gap was significant, and awareness of that gap was the engine driving the entire campaign against you. The louder the accusations directed outward at you, the less attention landed on the source. Classic misdirection. Point with enough conviction at the thing you need people not to look past, and they will not think to look at you. What was practiced in private was the very thing being condemned in public. The methods used against you, the deliberate attempts to disrupt your energy, block your path and fragment your sense of spiritual clarity, were not the work of someone protecting a community. They were the work of someone who had seen what you carry and wanted it neutralized. The people who added their energy to this effort believed they were participating in something righteous. They were not. They were powering a machine built entirely for someone else's benefit. Genuine authority does not require secrecy. It does not operate one way in public and a completely different way when no one is watching. Real power has the same face in the light and in the dark because it has nothing to hide. What was being used against you required deliberate concealment. If the community had ever seen the actual methods, the actual motivation, and the actual nature of what was being done beneath the spiritual language, the entire structure would have collapsed immediately. The cooperation of that community depended entirely on their not knowing. Living inside that gap between the public identity and the private operation is its own kind of prison. Maintaining a constructed self requires constant vigilance. Every public appearance carries the risk of something slipping. The energy required to sustain that vigilance is enormous, and exhausted people become imprecise. Imprecision creates cracks. Cracks allow light in, and light does exactly what light always does in a space that was designed to exclude it. The people closest to the source can feel the cost of that maintenance, even without being able to name what they are sensing. What they are sensing is the strain of a foundation that was never honest enough to bear the weight placed on it. And the questions those people are now quietly asking, not about you, but about the person who instructed them what to think about you. Those questions are the sound of that foundation beginning to settle into its true position. There is an ancient understanding about intention. What you set in motion outward returns to you, shaped by the nature of what was behind it. If what was behind it was genuine care, what returns aligns with that. If what was behind it was fear, envy, or the need to control what you cannot match, what returns carries the signature of those exact things, and it does not return toward the target. It returns to the source. What was set in motion against you was a wish dressed in the language of justice. The wish was for chaos to surround your name. The wish was for confusion to cloud your character, for your momentum to stall, your message to be suppressed, your gifts to be discredited, and your forward movement to be stopped entirely. In its plainest terms, the wish was for you to be smaller, quieter, and easier to manage. For a season, aspects of that wish landed. You felt the confusion. You felt the interference pressing against your natural direction. Give it that credit. It reached you. What passes through fire and does not break is not simply surviving. It is being proven. Every part of you that was tested and held did so because it was genuinely real. Every piece that was challenged and returned did so because it was rooted in something the pressure could not access. The chaos designed to scatter you actually sorted you. It removed what was not essential and reinforced everything that was. You came through that season lighter in the ways that were costing you and more powerful in every way that matters. The wish had a fatal miscalculation at its core. The person behind it believed they were directing justice toward you. But the universe does not process instructions from people who are themselves in violation of the principles they invoke. Karma is not a service that can be aimed at a target. It is a mirror. And when you hold a mirror toward someone else, your own reflection is the first thing that appears. The disruption that was called is now circling its source. The credibility erosion engineered to land on your name is landing on the person who engineered it, not through any effort of yours, not through any countermove or campaign, but through the simple, patient, irresistible accumulation of evidence in a space where the account of reality no longer matches what is actually observable. The people who stood in agreement with the operation are now watching the disruption, the exposure, and the quiet erosion of credibility land on the person who promised it would land on you. The silence that follows that witnessing is more powerful than anything you could have said in your own defense. You do not have to say anything. The reversal is speaking for itself in front of the exact audience that was assembled to watch your fall. They are watching a fall, just not the one they were expecting. And no sermon, no explanation, and no reframing makes that easier to absorb when you are the one sitting there watching it unfold. Before any of this started, before the campaign, before the orchestrated opposition, before your name was first spoken in that space, with damage in the voice behind it, something was already written about you, not in a way that required anyone's agreement or permission. It was written in the way that certain trajectories are embedded into the structure of certain lives, the way certain people arrive into this existence already carrying a specific assignment, already marked for a specific quality of opposition, already destined for a specific kind of public proving. The person at the center of this encountered a description at some point, a framework, an ancient or modern account that described a particular kind of soul, a soul that arrives carrying undeniable light during a heavy time, a soul that will be misread and misidentified, a soul targeted by organized opposition at precisely the moment of their most significant becoming, accused of being the very thing opposing it, called dark by the actual darkness, and tested publicly by the fear of those who cannot match what it carries. That description fit you so precisely that it stopped someone cold. Recognizing that you match a description of the chosen also means recognizing your own position in that description. It means confronting the possibility that you are not the righteous one in this situation, that you are playing the role of opposition in someone else's ordained path. That is a shattering recognition for a person whose entire identity is built around being righteous. The almost universal response to that kind of shattering is not honesty, it is escalation. Escalation, however destructive, at least maintains the feeling of conviction. And conviction is the last shelter of someone whose certainty has been quietly hollowed out. Escalation after that recognition is a completely different thing from the original operation. Before recognition, there was the genuine comfort of belief. After recognition, there is only the performance of belief, and performance under sustained pressure becomes erratic. Erratic behavior draws attention that it cannot afford. The people who had been giving full and unquestioning faith to the authority in front of them begin to notice that something has shifted, something feels different, something that previously felt like protection now carries a quality they cannot cleanly identify but can no longer ignore. Chosen does not mean comfortable. It does not mean the path stays clear, or the people celebrate, or the resources arrive without resistance. What chosen means is that you were given the exact quality of opposition your specific assignment required in order to develop the exact depth of knowing, groundedness and precision that assignment demands. The opposition was not a detour from your purpose, it was the forge. What you carry now, the quality of your discernment, the accuracy of your gifts, the unshakable rootedness of your identity, could not have been produced without the specific quality of what you were put through. You were produced by this experience, and what you are now is the undeniable visible evidence of that production. You do not need a platform to deliver that testimony. You just need to keep being exactly what you are. Here is the most quietly devastating thing that happened to everything constructed against you. You never engaged on their terms. That was not a passive choice. It was the most powerful move available to you. The entire framework built around your name was designed to function off your engagement. Every possible response was pre-interpreted and preloaded with a meaning that would serve the narrative against you. Defend yourself. You are rattled. Push back. You are aggressive. Explain your position. You are desperate. Go public with your account. You are causing drama. The architecture left no opening for any response from you that would not be absorbed and repurposed as further confirmation of what they had already decided you were. What that architecture had no answer for was you continuing to be precisely, consistently, and undeniably yourself, operating your gifts at full capacity, helping the people you were sent to help, speaking the truth you were sent to speak, and building the life you were sent to build without performing for anyone, without addressing the accusations, and without spending your energy in an arena you had not consented to enter. You cannot discredit a person who keeps generating undeniable evidence of their own reality. Every time your gifts worked with genuine accuracy, that was evidence. Every time you showed up with the quiet, grounded precision of someone who actually knows what they carry, not the loud performance of manufactured authority, but the understated confidence of someone who simply is what they are, that was more evidence. That evidence accumulated without noise, without announcement, and without any counter-narrative. It was just the quiet, consistent, irrefutable record of a life aligned with its actual nature. Real gifts produce a specific quality of contrast when placed near counterfeit ones. The counterfeit holds up convincingly in isolation. The language is correct, the posture is right, and the appearance is professional. But when the genuine thing operates in the same environment, the difference is felt before it is understood. Something in the body registers the distinction before the mind finds words for it. The accuracy is noticeably different, the quality of what remains afterward is different, and the people in that community who had not yet fully surrendered their own discernment, who still had some access to their own sensing, felt that contrast. They felt it quietly at first, then with growing insistence, then loudly enough to become the very questions now circling in that community. Your absence from the expected response also produced something specific. When you did not show up in the role that had been prepared for you, the group had nothing from your direction to react to. So the group turned inward, responding to its own escalation, to each other, to the growing discomfort of watching the predicted outcome remain stubbornly absent. What you looked like across that distance was not a villain. You looked like someone completely at ease in your own life, unconcerned with the verdict of people who had committed to misunderstanding you, and moving forward with a steadiness that no external pressure had managed to disrupt. That kind of steadiness cannot be performed. Genuine indifference to the opinion of people who have committed to misunderstanding you is either real or it is nothing. The community recognized it as real, whether or not they could yet admit what that recognition meant for everything they had been told about you. Clean recognition is on its way, not the complicated kind wrapped in the weight of everything you just came through. The merit-based kind. The kind that builds when people encounter what you actually produced and want more of it, not because they were recruited or pointed in your direction, but because what you offer lands in them with an accuracy that genuinely surprises them. They were not expecting to feel that seen, that understood, that precisely met where they needed to be met. And that surprise makes them turn and tell someone. That person tells someone else. A gathering forms, not around a shared enemy, not held together by fear of leaving, but around the direct experience of what happens when they stay. That quality of gathering compounds with time. It gets stronger, not weaker. It survives scrutiny and distance because it is rooted in something actually real. The kind of following built on fear eventually exhausts its fuel. The kind of recognition building around you now has no ceiling. It grows from encounter, from precision, and from the accumulated evidence of genuine gifts in genuine service of the people those gifts were designed to reach. The signal you are transmitting is cleaner now than it has been in a long time. The interference deliberately introduced to muddy it was cleared by the same process that was meant to eliminate you. The people who were always meant to find you are finding you, not because you are presenting yourself differently, but because the frequency is finally unobstructed. Something is also building on the practical, tangible level. The work you kept doing through the difficult stretch, the precision you maintained, the consistency you held when the visible audience was small and the opposition was loud, that work is a record. Records produce results. The achievement accumulating toward you was built inside the fire. The very thing meant to stop your momentum was, from a different angle, building the depth of credibility that effortless success could never have produced. You are about to find out what it feels like to be recognized for exactly what you are, not defended, not explained, simply recognized by people who encounter the real thing and know immediately what they are standing near. There is a temptation arriving, if it has not already arrived, to insert yourself into what happens to the people who orchestrated this. You want to address the community publicly. You want to lay out everything point by point in front of everyone who was recruited against you. You want the full record corrected with your hand on the process. Do not pick up that gavel, not because you are wrong, you are not wrong. Not because the truth does not deserve to be spoken, it does, but because the justice already in motion here does not need your hand on it. The moment you place your hand on it, you shift the focus from the weight of accumulated, irrefutable evidence to your participation in the exposure. And your participation can be framed, challenged, and reinterpreted by anyone motivated to do so. You would be stepping into an arena specifically engineered to convert your presence into their advantage. Truth built this case, not you. And truth is a more credible and unassailable witness than your direct involvement could ever produce. The awakening spreading through that community right now is powered entirely by the gap between what was claimed about you and what is observable. That gap requires zero assistance from you to be devastating. It is devastating on its own, operating quietly, relentlessly, and with the kind of precision that only accumulates over time. What this process needs from you is your absence from it, your complete, deliberate, energetically committed absence. Not because you are afraid, but because what is here, the life building in front of you, the recognition arriving, the community forming around your genuine frequency, the purpose expanding, is worth far more of your full and focused attention than anything happening behind you. Right now, a portion of your awareness is still oriented toward that community. You are still monitoring, still processing, still waiting at some level for a specific resolution before fully investing in what is ahead. That orientation is a real cost. It is a tax levied on the resource that should be moving entirely toward what is building in front of you. The reckoning will continue, whether or not you watch it. It is powered by truth, which requires no maintenance from you. Release your attention from it entirely. Let it complete its work without your presence. When you turn fully forward, you will see something the entire operation was designed to prevent you from seeing. You will see the scope of what is ahead, the scale of what your gifts are capable of when they are freed completely from the weight of navigating opposition, the people already moving toward you, the doors already open, and the version of your life that has been assembling itself on the other side of this exact moment, waiting for you to arrive in it without reservation. Walk toward it like the chosen one who already knows how this ends, because you do know, you have always known. The part of you that carries that knowing is the precise part of you that could not be broken. Honor it now by moving as though it is completely and irrevocably true. You were chosen. You have always been chosen. And now, in the middle of a community asking questions it cannot answer, your name is doing the one thing it was always going to do. It is proving itself. It is proving itself without your defense, without your explanation, and without your campaign. Because what is true does not require assistance. It just requires time, and time has done its work. They asked how, when, what, where. Here is the only answer those questions have ever needed. You are still here. You are more yourself than you have ever been. Your gifts are sharper. Your path is clearer. Your name is arriving at the full weight of what it was always meant to carry. A whole community, shook, questioning and reorganizing around a truth they cannot stop feeling, is your living, breathing proof. Walk into what is next. Walk into it not tentatively, not looking behind you, but as the chosen one who already knows exactly how this ends. It is already